Welcome to You're On in 5, The Art of Understudying.
The only podcast to celebrate the work of actors in understudy roles.
Understudying demands tons of preparation with minimal rehearsal.
Or sometimes none at all.
But it can end in triumphant glory.
In these conversations, we will amplify the diverse voices of actors who have understudied. We want to hear about the actor's technique, experience, and journey.
As well as whatever's on our mind that day. Hey, I'm Elana Elise, one of your hosts. I am an actor, director, coach, sometimes writer. You might know me from The Spin, the first virtual show I did during the pandemic with the Terrorbank Theater Project. And that's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you might have said that one before, but
So
I'll
what?
I'll allow it.
Yes, you will.
And I am the other co-host of this show, Scott Sava. You might know me from I joined the replacement cast for the extension of A Fine Feathered Murder by Helena Handbag Productions for 5 shows in August, and it was a great time.
Oh, you've never said that. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Today we have Kaleigh Cronin joining us. Welcome, Kaleigh.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be chatting with you. And I think this is so important. Like understudies, especially this year, more than ever, I feel like deserve to be highlighted. And it's so cool that you're doing this.
Well, thank you. This was Scott's brainchild. He's a genius.
Snaps for Scott.
Yes.
Going back to Elana, too.
Kaleigh, what we start with always is the question, what was your very first understudy gig?
My very first understudy gig happened when I was, I want to say, 15 years old. I was playing Allie the Alligator in a production of Professor Animal's Animal Adventures. I'm sure you've heard of it. World famous. This was in summer theater in New Hampshire, where I grew up. And I want to say the night before one of our 10 a.m. children's performances, the girl who was playing Olive the Octopus was ill. And the show was not going to happen the next day. So they called to say, show's off tomorrow. And I want to say it was like 8 o'clock the night before. And I can't remember if they had asked if I might want to try it or if I just volunteered, like, you know what, I think I could do this. So I learned the role that night. I mean, it wasn't Shakespeare. We're talking, a song, a few scenes. But I learned it and performed it at 10 a.m. the next morning. And I was both alligator and octopus at that performance. And I feel like that was the first time I thought, like, I feel like I'm kind of good at memorizing things quickly, which could be a good skill to have. And B, I really loved the adrenaline rush I got from that pressure and being like, okay, you said you'd do it. You got to learn it and you have to deliver. So that was the first understudy gig that I didn't even know would be an understudy gig. But I loved it. And I've kind of been doing it ever since.
That's amazing. I'm just sitting in that for a second. That's so exciting. Like, I'm very familiar with that feeling. So, that's great.
So you were 15 at the time. Was this like a professional show? Were you?
I want to say my whole life, actually, up till college, I was fortunate enough to live very close to some professional regional theaters, the Palace Theater in New Hampshire being one of them. And I kind of always was the child amongst the professional adults. Some of them were equity, some were non-equity. I was just kind of lucky to be there as a kid and included always in the shows. And I did shows in New Hampshire pretty much from age 5 up until age 18, until I went to college. So that was one of those. I think it was me and then other professional adults. But a lot of great childhood, theater experiences that are the reason I do this for a living.
Yeah. Is your family in theater?
No, not at all. Not at all. My father's an attorney. My mom was the head of admissions for a school. for a college in town. But she is very musical, though. Always sang to me, danced with us growing up. So I feel like I was born with it in my bones. Like I knew that I was going to be a performer. The big joke was, even as a little kid, I would they thought that I might have like a personality disorder because I would pretend to be different people and would only respond to that name. Whatever day it was, I was Ariel. And you could only refer to me as Ariel for the entire day. And then new day, new personality. But I think I was just always an actress. Like I knew I had to do that with my life.
Wow, that is maddening. But also on this
I
end
know.
of it is amazing.
Yeah, crazy for my parents. I drove them insane.
Right.
But I'm grateful that I always knew what I wanted to do. I knew for me, like that was my love, and I was determined to do that, to make a living.
That's incredible. So Scott asked that because then we tend to want to talk about like that first professional experience, but your first experiences were in the professional world. And so then let's talk about if there were anything in college that was understudy specific, and if not, then your first gig out of college.
Totally. So though, I dabbled in some of the professional theater. My alligator octopus story was definitely it was definitely amateur theater.
Yeah.
But my first big girl, like professional understudying job was my Broadway debut, understudying my dream role of Sally Bowles in Cabaret. Which truly, if you'd have had asked me my entire life, what role would you just die to play? And my answer was always Sally Bowles. And so that experience, not even understudying, just being a part of that production overall was like just magic. I could not have asked for a better debut. I couldn't have asked for a better team and cast. And getting to step in and perform alongside like Alan Cumming and step in for Emma Stone when she left to go to the Oscars. It was just a wild experience, and one I will never forget. And that being my first experience with it, looking back, I'm like, why was I not absolutely terrified out of my mind? But I think I was set up for success. I was really well supported. And I feel like when something is in your wheelhouse and you feel good about it, even if you're stepping in for celebrities, you're going to feel good about playing the role.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any intricacies you can talk about that contributed to you feeling so well supported, so well taken care of, so ready? We have, all theaters are different, but we know on Broadway that they are going to make sure you get what you need. But are there any details about that? Any specific experiences that you can share that highlights the way you were taken care of and helped to prepare?
Sure. First of all, I think I approach understudying with the understanding that when I accept this duty to understudy, I try to take as much of that on myself and preparing myself the best way I know how, whether that means, I know for me, I am a crazy over-preparer. So like I will get a script and learn every one of my lines, but then every one of my understudies' lines to the best of my ability, know that script in and out, develop full backstory for the characters before I even walk in the room, so that if a situation happens like it is happening so often this year, especially with COVID, we've had people call out of shows before the rehearsal experience even begins. And then you're the one standing up there on stage, so you better be prepared. So I try to do it as much as possible myself before I even arrive to the rehearsal room. I will say with Cabaret and with all of my experiences, and I mean that sincerely, the stage management team has been so good about trying to prepare their understudies. You'll usually get weekly understudy rehearsals where you get to run through the show top to bottom. It's usually not a full rehearsal. You don't have costumes and props and moving set pieces, but you're at least standing in the space, doing the blocking, saying the words aloud with scene partners, which is so helpful. So that when the day comes, you really are, you find yourself laughing that, geez, I'm not even nervous to sing these songs, to have these lines memorized. That's already so ingrained in me from being well prepared. But I'm more nervous about the quick change I have coming in 10 seconds. I've never seen the dress before, which is, those are the things that you kind of go, we'll see how this goes, and, just figure it out. But yeah, with Cabaret specifically, especially being that I was young, it was my first Broadway job. They did a great job really leading with kindness, and it was such a positive space. And kind of giving us everything we needed. One of the other roles I understudied was Fraulein Kost, which is like a supporting leading role. And a fun fact about the Cabaret revival, which you may or may not be familiar with, but all of the Kit Kat Club boys and girls, so the ensemble, which Fraulein Kost was a part of, they're also the band for the show. So in addition to singing, dancing, acting, we had to be instrumentalists, which... that was a whole other story. I kind of faked it till I made it to get cast in the production in the first place, but I was the saxophone player. And then, come to learn on the first day of rehearsal, one of these roles, Fraulein Kost, I'd be understudying plays the accordion, which I don't know, have either of you ever played or attempted to play the accordion?
I've touched one once.
Yeah, I've held it and maybe squeezed it a few times.
Okay, the squeezing is what gets you. Like, it is so hard. I guess if you're a great pianist, like, you have the natural sense of being able to play the keys part,
Right.
but the moving the bellows and squeezing in and out, that was, for someone who, I don't even play piano, so I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, how am I going to actually perform this in front of people on a Broadway stage? But going back to preparedness, I said to them, okay, I don't want to ever be performing this and not know how to play this instrument. So can someone take the time to, teach me? They gave me an accordion lesson. They had a spare accordion that I came in an hour early every day to play. I played it every single day before the show, just in case I had to go on. So that by the time, of course, I did end up going on often, I knew what I was doing and didn't really feel hung out to dry, which is so wonderful, when you're an understudy. Yeah. Not to say it doesn't happen, and sometimes it has to happen, with COVID, with injuries, with things we can't predict. But I so appreciate when there's like the forethought to schedule the understudy rehearsals, get the spare instruments so people can be keeping up their craft and working on it themselves, because that stuff is, it's helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I especially love the extra instruments. That's fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
It just feels good. Like, it definitely, it makes you feel taken care of, that there was forethought. I love that.
Absolutely.
I actually did see Cabaret, that production.
Really?
Because Cabaret is like my number one favorite show of all time.
Same.
It's perfection. I got to play Cliff like 2 or 3 years ago.
Love it.
Yeah, right before COVID, pretty much. And it's actually how I met Elana too, because the casting director for Interrobang had seen Cabaret that I was in, and was like, "You have to audition for this show they got coming up." And I auditioned for it, didn't get it. And then I got it.
Oh, great. There you go. Happy ending.
Yeah, it was meant to have it. It just took me 3 people to figure it out.
Yeah. Like, I'm trying not to think of too many like fanboy questions, but like, what was it like being able to work with like Alan Cumming?
He is the most wonderful human. I mean that so sincerely. I hope you can see how serious I'm being right now through the computer. He is just, talk about a fabulous leader. He is just everything you'd want in a friend, in an acting partner. He's tremendous. And I'm lifelong friends with him. He, was so warm and welcoming to my husband. We hung out with him on numerous occasions post-show. And he also, you may have heard tell of Alan's club coming that he created backstage at Cabaret, which was he essentially turned his dressing room into an after-hours club. So
this I did not hear about that. That's amazing.
And it was, talk about like first Broadway experience. Everyone was kind of saying to me like, it's not usually like this. Just prepare yourself for the future. But after every show, we'd go to his dressing room that was sponsored by various alcohol brands and snack brands, of course, right? And whoever, whatever fancy celebrity had seen the show that day would come upstairs and we'd all hang and talk. And it was a blast. It was just such an amazing time of life. But it's because everyone, gravitates towards him. He's such an entertainer and just so amazing. And that's just him as a person, never mind in the role, like getting to just watch him every night. And as a part of that Kit Kat Club band, we're on stage sitting out there the entire time. So it was like with him, with all of these incredible actors, it was a masterclass every day. I would just sit and hold my saxophone and watch these scenes. And when I tell you, I truly never was bored. Like new and inventive every single day. And it was awesome. And from an understudy perspective, that was cool being on stage, watching the scenes because you don't often get to see, these scenes play out every single day. But I was like, great, front row seat. What's her blocking? What's she saying? Great. So that was a nice treat.
That is awesome. And this was his second time in this role, right? Like he played as a younger man, right? Yeah. So just the fact that he could even do that effectively,
And he could do it now. That man could do it 20 years from now.
Yes.
I don't understand. We all joke that he goes home and plugs himself in at night because he is giving 150% every single day at all hours. And he would, I think, finish a show. We'd go upstairs, hang out for hours, and then he'd go immediately to the Good Wife set and film all night, rinse and repeat. And never a complaint, like just happy to be there. Yeah. It was great energy to be around.
That's amazing.
Can I also ask about understudying Emma Stone?
Mm-hmm.
Was she the only Sally that was in it while you were?
So I did the whole run. So we had Michelle Williams, then Emma, and then Sienna Miller finished the run.
I saw Sienna Miller. I think on her first show, maybe, or second
really?
Show. Yeah.
She was fabulous. I felt like she was so authentically Sally Bowles, So I was one of two understudies for Sally. I only went on for Emma. The other understudy went on for the other girls. But that experience, actually doing the role, I think whenever you're stepping into like name above the title role, that could be a little daunting. People are coming to see this show to see Emma Stone. And because it's Emma Stone in Cabaret, audiences, when they show up and there's big signs all over the theater saying, Emma Stone will not be performing tonight. Well, they can return their tickets if they want to, which is, of course, they can. They came to see the celebrity. And I will never forget how cool it was. My mother was there. Of course, I asked, no, please no one come. Like, it's my first time on. I just want to do it alone. And, of course, my mom was there with, like, a busload of 50 people from my family and friends. But she said it was the most amazing thing to watch people, be disappointed that Emma's not performing. And then talk about support, like the wait staff, the ushers were yelling to these people, like, you don't understand. You have to see this understudy. She's great. Like, don't return your tickets. You will not be disappointed, which was the cutest thing. Like, they'd, I think, just seen me, do understudy rehearsals. Yeah. But she said, like, they believe in you, and they were, getting people to stick around. And then by intermission, you have them. I feel like it's kind of a better place to be in. I like when people are like down on you at the beginning because you go, okay, I can't get any lower than this. They're bummed, right? I'm a disappointment. So all I can do is win them over. And I think that's a cool challenge,
Yes, I love that. Oh, That's so good. And like just to have them insisting, that's so great.
I
Congratulations
know
on that. For
that made me
however
feel
long
so
ago that was,
nice.
right? Like that's really awesome.
That was cool.
Um, so now then, you have to tell us if there has been any Wonkadoodles understudy experience, because you're out here just living a life, having a good old time.
Oh my God, Wonka Doodles. I mean, well, the accordion, as much as I was prepared, I would have been thrilled if you told me I never had to play that thing. And I'd practice every day. But Sally, I had more, I had the understudy rehearsals. I actually had a full put-in where I had the costumes on, the whole set runs, and it's pretty much just a full performance, but for no audience. So I felt ready for that. And my dates were planned ahead of time. They said January so-and-so to so-and-so, you're going to be Sally Bowles. For the Fraulein Kost role, I think we were still in previews, so I maybe had done one rehearsal, no put-in. I think we got through maybe half of the show. And the girl playing the role, who I love dearly, fell down the stairs backstage. Yeah, like terrifying. And she's okay, but ended up having to get taken away by ambulance, like scary. This was post-show one night, and we're all just hanging out in the dressing rooms, and that happened. We're all horrified for her. And then, of course, someone turned to me like, okay, so you're doing the part tomorrow. And I was like, fear of God. So that was kind of Wonkadoodle in that it was like not meant to happen, nor that fast. And it was a little bit more like, nervous energy. But Wonkadoodle in terms of like people I've understudied, no, I've been very fortunate.
Or building structure, like
you know what's been hard? So of the last 4 shows I've done, 3 have been new musicals. And understudying in a new Broadway musical, oof. That can be so difficult because I think people don't realize that when you're creating this new piece, the show is being rewritten every single day. And I have spent my whole career being in the ensemble, on-stage ensemble, covering a principal or 2 roles. So oftentimes in the creation stages, of these new musicals, the ensemble is in one room. You're learning choreography. You're learning ensemble singing numbers. You're kept very separate from the principals, as you should be. There's so much material to get through. But me being my over-prepared self, I'd show up with whatever the latest script is. Okay, I memorized my principal parts. I'm going to go and dance this whole morning with the ensemble. But then you get to lunch and the stage manager comes up to you and is like, so here's 100 new pages. So everything you've learned is now like truly take it and throw it in the recycling bin and start again. So that can be scary, especially in like a preview process where you're understudying someone and it's a brand new song just going in that night, that can be terrifying. I've not been put on in a preview setting, I don't think, in one of these new musicals, but I've been ready to be because you have to be, and that can be crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Has there ever been anything that like has happened on stage that was like not planned and like totally nerve-wracking?
I kind of live for those moments. I know I shouldn't say that because I don't want to put it out there that they should happen more. But, we've all been on stage, I'm sure, where like the set piece doesn't move or you're stuck out there for an extra 5 minutes and you've got to fill it. And it's those moments are so terrifying. But I think they're so exhilarating. And I think if it's scary, I don't know, it's an exciting challenge. And so as much as it frightens me, I kind of love when that stuff happens. I've definitely had, costumes malfunction, wigs fall off. I used to, this is bad, not terrible. I used to wear press-on fingernails, and I occasionally still do, but not on stage anymore. And there was one time I must not have used the right glue or something, and on stage during scenes, my nails were coming off like on people one by one during the show. And we'd be like in a scene, a serious moment, like I'm tears on my face, and I'd grab his hand. I think this was like during Jersey Boys. Like, no, you can't leave. And he'd pull away and would just be holding some fingernails. And it was like just a mess. I mean, just holding in laughter left and right. But that's live theater for you.
That's 55% of why I love live theater. Like the chance of that and being in that space of figuring it out on the spot, trusting that I'm probably going to figure out it for the best, but there's always a chance that it's all going to fall apart like that.
Yep.
I really love that.
I also find that when it's big issues, like when you have to stop or hold a show because a set piece has malfunctioned or something with the audio is down, or, I've been touring with a show when all of a sudden every light, like it was a power outage. Oh. But when things like that happen, the audience is so with you, and because they're like, oh, this is special. This is unique about live theater. This is only happening in front of my eyes. And I think I have found that when the show resumes, they're that much more on board, like they're that much more in it. So sometimes it takes a little like doot to get everyone back on track and so invested.
Yeah, it wakes everybody up.
Totally.
It does. I had an outage during from the Mississippi Delta, and it was super hot. The power went out. And, I was doing a monologue when the power went out. I'm like scanning because the director would be at every show. And I'm trying to see if we're going to be told to stop.
Sure.
I don't get any indication to stop. I see people running lanterns down to the stage, like from the back of the house. No. So they bring us these lanterns, and at the time, the other two, it's a cast of 3. So the other 2 young ladies are off stage. So they put the lanterns on the front of the stage and give me mine. They open the doors. It's called From the Mississippi Delta. It's a sweltering Chicago summer night. You can hear like cicadas and stuff coming in. So like our energy, mine, and then when the ladies came back, it was just like through the roof. Now we got these lanterns and I can play with it like during my monologue, and when they come out, like it's just, I'm getting goosebumps right now remembering it. It was incredible. It was a packed house, just hot and humid like the Mississippi Delta.
Yes.
And then the power came back on right before intermission was over, so we resumed. But that last half of Act 1 was just a whole new thing, and we rode that high all the way through the end of the show. But it was, it was a whole different feel. It was incredible.
Now, was the team like, okay, we need lanterns now? We're doing this every night?
I don't know. I don't know why they even had them then. Like, why did they have them then?
Right. Why were there lanterns on call?
Right? Like, I've worked at this theater plenty of summers, and I didn't know, where'd they come from? And they had 3 of them, right. And they were ready for us. And we had no reason to believe the power was going to go out. Oh. But, maybe that theater is just prepared with lanterns, because sometimes in Evanston, Illinois, a storm will take you out. Like, right. I had no idea. And they were so like, it didn't, like they had to be like in the booth or something. Like there was no delay. So I was still talking in the dark while I was looking for instructions, So like it, maybe a minute passed, maybe, before I had a lantern in my hand.
That's amazing.
It was incredible.
Wow.
Here's something. So wait, 2 things. No, I forgot the other thing. Oh, no, I wrote it down. That's what my notebook's for. Have you understudied more than one track at once? And separate from being in the show, right? Because we do that. But like just still being responsible for learning other tracks besides your own, like more than one.
You mean ensemble tracks, like internally?
I mean, at any kind of understudy. Like that can be the case. So what I'm trying to distinguish between internally is still separate from your main role, right? So if you had more than one track internally, or if you were only an understudy and not in the show, if you had more than one character to
Got it.
Understudy. Yeah, or
I guess I have been in the ensemble covering multiple lead roles. I have never stood by, so I've never been off stage understudying leads, though I would love to. have that opportunity. I feel like that is cool. I think that could probably also be terrifying. One of my best friends is the standby for Hugh Jackman right now in The Music Man. And he recently got to go on. Thought he might never because Hugh never misses. And then, COVID. And he was, absolutely phenomenal. But I just think that's a cool thing to be a standby. So I'd love to do that someday. I have not. And then I have never officially, internally covered other ensemble tracks. However, that happens so often in shows. I think maybe less now because people are cracking down on, okay, you need to get paid for very specifically what your responsibilities are. But I'm kind of bad with that because I'm very much like, the show must go on. So I feel like when stuff goes down, I'm kind of the first to be like, oh, I can just say her lines. Oh, I'll just do that dance. I'll just, So I have unofficially been kind of an internal, I'll cover what you need. But yeah, my only experience understudying has been officially has been in an ensemble covering the principal role or in an ensemble covering 2 different principal roles.
Do you have how do you organize yourself then? Because you're so diligent about your preparation, which is time consuming. So you have your own role to learn, and then you have 2 additional ones. How do you organize your time and your work when you're doing that?
It varies, I guess, by show. But I know a lot of people have color coding and they use one big master binder that has all. People don't even use paper anymore. I still do. I think everyone has awesome apps that have all the color coding of, here's my 5 different tracks and she goes here. And I am not technologically savvy. And I am the person that prefers, I would always rather read a paper book than Kindle or something. I feel like there's something about having the tangible pages in my hand. So I tend to split up the entire show in, say, if I have my own track, and then I'll do an entire binder or entire folder of just one other person's track, another entire separate folder of this other person's track. And I feel like I kind of do go through the whole show as each person fairly often. Understudy rehearsal is great in that they will cycle you through. 1 week you'll come in to do your one role. 1 week I'll be there as Sally Bowles. The next week I'll be there as Fraulein Kost. So you're getting, you're in some sort of cycle of doing them repeatedly. But on my own too, I would come in early. I'm there early, embarrassingly early every day, just because that's who I am. I'm crazy. But I would
early is embarrassingly early.
What did you say?
How early? That.
Ask anyone I've ever worked with. I am there. If it's an 8:00 show, I'm there at 6:45, 6:50, over an hour early. Yeah. And that's even if I'm not.
Yeah,
that's.
No. I thought you were gonna say 5 or something.
Oh no. But I'm still the first.
I'm only half an hour before.
Half
right?
hour.
Yeah.
So
that's just early.
I'm usually the first person in the building after the wardrobe team is there pressing costumes. But I just like that. I have to, be in my spot, be prepared. I'm always sitting ready in my chair at half hour. They always give me the first wig time, because I requested. I'm I'm here. I might as well go first. But I'll get there that early and go up to the stage when it's empty and run through my show as whatever character. Most recently I did Mrs. Doubtfire on Broadway, and I understudied Janet Lundy, which is one of the supporting principal roles. So I'd get there early, I'd stretch, I'd do my own warm-up, and then I'd go, okay, let me just talk through her scenes. I'll just do them quickly, to myself, walk around the stage, do her blocking, kind of just do the checkpoints. Obviously, I'm not doing a full, performance for no one by myself. Okay. But just to walk through it and go, okay, I still got it. It's in there. And that's important for me to check in often just to make sure it's, I have it fresh. Yeah. Sorry.
Do you find that other understudies tend to do those things as well, or I don't know? Do you find you're kind of an anomaly?
I think I'm probably overkill, and I'm admitting that. I think there's probably a happy medium between some people don't prepare at all and still deliver. I mean, that's great. I think you know what you need. I know for myself, I probably go overboard. Like my husband sometimes when I'm prepping for an audition, he's like, you have it. Like you knew it 5 times ago. You don't have to keep going over it. But that's just me as a person. I've always been that way. So I think probably go a little hard in the prep area. But it's what makes me feel confident. And I feel like I learn things every time I do the show, you know? I even for Mrs. Doubtfire, there was like a big girls dance number that started the second act. And before every show, it's kind of my ritual. Like I would do the number backstage alone before we did it for real. And some of my castmates were like, you've been doing this for 2 years. If you don't know it now, you don't know it. Like
Right.
you're great. You got it. But I'm like, I don't know. It's like it's just my thing. It's like my ritual. So I like to just go over it, do it once for me, and then I feel good to go. But I think people all have their own methods, and it varies so greatly. I think it's about knowing what works for you.
Mm-hmm. What we'll probably do 1 or 2 more questions and then head to a break, but what has been like the relationship with your I like to call them overstudies. Are they do you have any questions? Do you are they very open and helpful with that stuff, or have you had instances where it was kind of like radio silence or worse?
I would say both. I've been lucky to understudy all wonderful people, truly. I think it's interesting that the people I've understudied who've been previously been understudies themselves take the time to say, "Did you get those changes? Did you see I'm on 15 here? Did you see we made this change? You might not have gotten it because you were, rehearsing the choreo."
Mm-hmm.
So I think a former understudy makes an even better overstudy because they know, and I learned that, understudying. I'm like, geez, okay, when I'm playing the role, I'm going to make sure that the person that's going to step in for me knows what to do and feels prepared. And I think when I haven't gotten that much, info, it's not because they didn't want me to have it, more so just they weren't aware that that's something you do. And I think that's something you only can learn by doing and by experiencing it. And certainly with the celebrities, it's different. It was some of their first experiences in theater, and I was not expecting to, for Michelle Williams to turn to me at each break to tell me where to stand. So, there are certain instances that could be unique in that way. But all of my experiences thus far have been lovely, and people that want to see you succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a great feeling, It would be a shame if that weren't the case, and I feel very fortunate that that's always been my experience.
Yeah. When they're bringing in a replacement like an Emma Stone or oh my gosh, what was her name? Sienna Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Do they come to you and are like, "Hey, do you know like what the blocking is in this scene," or are you able to support them in that way?
It's funny you should ask that because I never expected them to. Like, who am I? And here's Emma Stone coming in. But she actually reached out to me via email to say, like, I have never done this before. I'm nervous. Do you have any tips about singing and how to pace yourself? And, what should I be aware of? Which I thought was, like, so sweet that you're asking me for advice. And it really just humanized her. I mean, she is so down to earth. Everything you think Emma Stone is, she is in real life. Like just the sweetest, most wonderful. But I thought that was so neat that she was saying, like, you guys are the professionals here, so tell me what I need to do. And it was awesome. And it kind of, leveled the playing field. And we felt very much like, like a cast, like a group. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Kaleigh, have you ever had to do any other work, side jobs, non-theater related, or even if they were not acting, to earn your keep?
Oh yeah, don't we all? I feel like that's the thing about a gig in the performing arts. Like, it's great when you have a job. The good can be so good, but then when it ends, it never gets easier to be like, okay, I'm back at square one. What are we going to do to make the coin? But you have to figure something out. So I do have some side hustles that are like closely related to performing, whether that be like my husband and I have a media company we started. Like, he does videography and I write the scripts for like corporate videos. But I, during COVID, had to do a big old pivot, and I got my real estate license in New Hampshire, where I'm from, which was such an adventure. And such, there are a lot of things about theater that were helpful in my real estate career, but it's very much a total flip to go from singing and dancing one day to selling homes the next. But it ended up being the perfect thing to do in the interim where there was no work. And I really enjoyed it. And now it's something I'm able to keep up, obviously not as intensely because I'm not physically in New Hampshire at the moment. But, I have my active license. I'm referring work. I get back there to list homes when I can. I probably will get my license in New York or New Jersey so that I can continue it alongside performing now that, Broadway is back up and running. But yeah, I was like fully immersed in the real estate life for the better part of 2 years, which was crazy.
That is bananas. But awesome.
Cool. I think we're probably due for a break, yeah?
Let's do it.
All right, we are back with Kaleigh Cronin. Kaleigh, I wanted to ask, is your friend who is the standby for Hugh Jackman, is that Max Clayton?
It sure is. Do you know
cool.
Max?
I know of him because just through my research for the show, and the Music Man kind of, had a moment with when Sutton was out and
Yep.
Kathy Voitko
Yeah.
went in. And so I was like, oh, he'd be awesome to interview.
Yeah. So Max and I grew up together. He was like my little brother.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. We've been best
that's
friends
so
since,
cool.
I guess he was, 2 years old. But yeah, we are like best friends for life. Actually, this past weekend was my little sister's wedding, so he was there. But yeah, we like grew up doing shows together, and we're always like, we're going to be on Broadway. And he is just taken off. I mean, of course, he's so stinking talented. He's amazing. But watching him play that part was like, just perfection. It was awesome. It was awesome. But I'll tell him I chatted with you guys.
Oh, yeah, please.
She was. Sutton was,
cool.
yeah. Yeah, I ended up seeing him twice, and Sutton was in both nights, which that's a thing, too. Like, not only was he incredible, then he's kissing Sutton Foster. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, my God, this is crazy.
Yeah,
But,
like, you made it. You totally made it,
yeah,
you guys.
you did it. You did it, buddy.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
That's so fun.
And now it is time for the breakdown.
This intro music is everything. I
Isn't
love
it
it. It's so
awesome?
good. I'm breaking it down right now.
Yes. And our question for this episode is actually a reprise, you might say, of a breakdown that we've asked in the past. What superstitions do you subscribe to, if any, in the theater? There's the whole Scottish play thing. There's you always say break a leg.
Break a leg.
Anything like that?
Definitely break a leg for sure. I don't know where I learned this one, but no shoes on the countertop. Like, if you put a pair of show shoes on the counter, people are like, "Oh, get them! Like, put them down!" Like, they cannot be on your station. I don't know what that's about, but I follow that one because someone scared the crap out of me when I did that once. I was like, never again. Now she knows better. What other superstitions?
Or even rituals that you have that are like not from the work that you described before the break, but like superstition like rituals.
So I always, this is hearkening back to my days as a kid on Zoom. I was on this children's television show called Zoom as a 10 to 12-year-old. And I think this was probably more to like settle down us children than to like get you focused in the moment. But our child wrangler, she was awesome. Her name is Arlitza, used to I wonder if I can describe, like, center yourself, like in yoga, when you're like bringing your hands together in prayer position, like to your heart. So I always do that, like a few times through, take a deep breath, inhale, exhale. I do this like before every show. I do that. And then I take a minute just to remind myself how lucky I am to be doing what I love every day. Because I really do. Like, even if I come to the theater in a bad mood or I'm running late or something's gone wrong, like, how amazing. This is what all I ever wanted to do as a kid was perform on a stage. And like, there is no night that I've not walked out on a stage and gone, oh my gosh, I'm the luckiest person on the planet. Like, this is what an opportunity. Whether it's on Broadway, in a regional theater, anywhere, like if I am singing and dancing and making people laugh and smile, that's what it's about. So I try to, that's genuinely like a ritual I do. Like, wow, how lucky are you? Take that in for a minute, do my breaths, and then I can, continue. And then not put shoes on the countertop. But I'm trying to think of other weird things. I'm sure there are some.
Have there been any like specific to the shows that you've been on or the theaters that you've been performing in? And anything like that?
Yeah, because like at Second City, we used to always like hit this.
You hit the
thing.
Top of the thing?
Yeah, hit the theme. Okay. Yeah. And tell everybody I got your back.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, we do, I guess, a couple shows running now. We do planks before the show. Like, a group of us will do our plank call.
We've done that too.
Yeah. Which also, I mean, it's good, good for the bod because oftentimes, we're in not much clothing. So it's good to just keep those abs tight. But also it's like a great little hangout moment. Like, it's a daily check-in. We come up at like 15 before half hour, do our whole little 10-minute long planks in a circle, different ab exercises. And I feel like really it's just an excuse to hang out, check in. But that's like Mrs. Doubtfire, not one show passed without us doing that first.
Oh, that's cool.
And certain shows, you develop your things. Like Doubtfire, we had all of us that started on the same side of the stage backstage would do like a 1, 2, 3 family or 1, 2, 3 something squad. So I think you develop your isms for each show, certainly, which makes it more fun. Then you're excited to go to work, to do your things, to see your friends, because casts you really become family. You see these people all day, every day, and it's important to have your check-in moments on stage too. I feel like you develop as runs get longer and longer. You hope. There's like, in a dance number, you wink at the same guy on the same count every night. And it's like, then it becomes a part of the track. And it's so funny when a new person comes in or when you're in a brush-up rehearsal and you're like, oh, wait, like the thumbs up isn't a part of the choreography. I just made that up. I just do that every night because it comes so ingrained in you. But yeah, those are some little things I have done.
Nice. Scott, that's that part of the question I don't think you've answered. I know, like, for United Flight, who I did the planks with, the third iteration of United Flight, during our planks, because we had 2 sections that we ran every night, like just scenes, because the timing on them was super important. And so before, like the 2 previous casts, we would always run those sections, but this third cast, which was the majority, was the original cast. We just had a few different people, but we would run those sections in our plank. And so it was just kind of this nice mental dichotomy of this strength thing happening to your body, and you're just still like doing those lines. But yeah, Scott, do you have anything that was show specific for any of your productions that y'all did?
Not particularly. It's hard for me to ever find other actors who are like really into warm-ups. I don't know, maybe they do their warm-ups at home, maybe they, they're feeling great. But I love to get to the theater early, before house opens, for sure. And just get on the stage and do some, basic yoga and stretching. Warm up my voice. Is another thing I think a lot of actors don't necessarily do, which is fine if it works for them. It doesn't work for me. Like
Me
I
either.
need to warm it up, or else I'm going to be jump. Especially the last show I did was I was playing a British character, and so especially with British people, you have to have every consonant correct.
So precise, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can't really think of any group things like that. It was really nice though being in a show with like, that was a big cast. It was like 15 people, and many people that I'd already worked with in the past. And so while we didn't do anything like formally before the show, you find your little thing with like this person or that person, and but yeah, and I mean, I'm not a very superstitious person in the first place. So like, there's things that are easy enough to avoid, like the Scottish play
Sure.
or saying break a leg, that it's almost just, you just do it for not to get hassled by other people.
It's true.
Totally.
It's true. I have to say, if I'm in a show with an ensemble, I mean, I'm like the driver of the check-in or group activity or whatever. And very rarely have I had anybody be like, I don't want to do that. Because I think that ensemble building time makes such a huge difference. Even if we're all do our own warm-up things in general, that building that community for that particular production is super important to me. I need it, and nobody will convince me that they don't benefit from it. They don't benefit from it. Go ahead.
No. I so agree with you. Continue.
And gratefully, whether it's the Aries in me, my personality, or whatever, my sheer will force.
Yes.
Hey. Like I haven't, people are usually game. I mean, when there was no clear thing, I've played hokey pokey. I've initiated hokey pokey with my cat. Like, I'm like, we don't do nothing else. Like, let's just do this. And then they're on board though, and like everybody participates. It's just something that unifies us in that moment. Sometimes it's like, hey, everybody, let's just circle up and breathe together.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's hold hands, and maybe we'll do that pulse, maybe we won't, but like, let's take some breaths together. Let's come together in a very real way. So those things ritualistically are super important to me. I mean, no matter the size of the cast, even the 3-person cast that I was talking about, the director initiated that. Like, he would always, top of rehearsals, have us just circle up and check in just amongst ourselves. He wouldn't necessarily be involved. And like, I think that's so important. And it changes the experience and how you work together and builds that trust that you need so much. So yeah, and I can see if I'm watching a show with, more than 3 people, I can see that when they haven't done that work, it feels different. And I recognize how it would be different if they had, like
totally.
how the impact of coming together is different, and from when you can see that they haven't. So it's just, I don't know.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. I also feel like, I guess part of tying into ritual and part of me always wanting to get to the theater so early is to do those check-ins, and not only with my on-stage cast, but with everyone in the building. I think I'm probably hyper aware of it because I'm married to a Broadway musician. But so often I know from his experience, he's like, oftentimes he gets to a theater and he's like, I could do an entire run of a show and never meet cast members because we're kept so separate. And that's part of the being in these Broadway theaters, or people are like in the balcony, off in a pit, you're divided.
Yeah.
But to me, it's so important to, stop by the orchestra pit and just say, hey, how's everyone today? How are you? Great. Good to see you. Check in with the wardrobe team, check in with stage management office before I go down to my dressing room. Just because I would hate for the first time I'm seeing someone that day to be on stage or when they play a note and go, oh, there's John. I want to just connect with people first. So I think that's cool. And I agree with you. I think you notice when a group has built that sense of community and when they haven't. I think it makes a big difference.
For sure. I had this really terrible ritual for one show that I have a chai latte from Starbucks. I think I've told this story on a previous episode. And I used to put a shot of whiskey in it. Yum. And I just sip on it, whatever. And then one day I was not doing that. I'm not drinking during the show. Y'all, for real. After that show, and I had told people that I didn't have my whiskey in that chai, they were like, I'm going to need you to have that from now on.
That is so good.
And I
need you to lick it up.
And I was it was a little bit different without it. And I don't have a drinking problem. I don't do shows drunk or anything like that.
No,
it's just I had been doing that for that whole run. I was I don't need to. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And so after that, I was better have my shot of whiskey in this fucking chai because it changed.
Oh, but maybe that's the key. Build it in there first.
Right? I'm just 2% embarrassed by that story, but it's way too hilarious.
No shame. That's good.
It was good. All right, so Scott, I think it's time for props. All right, Kaleigh, during this time, we just give some shout outs to any understudies you've seen, who you were impressed with, any stage manager, anybody, really.
Okay. Well, if I could give props to, I have a million people I would want to give props to. First person that comes to mind is Travis Waldschmidt. Have you ever heard of this name? If you haven't, you will.
Okay.
This man, he is a swing understudy, dance captain, associate choreographer extraordinaire. I cannot explain how talented he is. So he has done, I don't know how many, 8 Broadway shows, and he often serves as the swing or dance captain because he's just so good at it. And one day he's going to take over and be the best Broadway choreographer there is. But what I witnessed him do in Mrs. Doubtfire during COVID, when we were, 14 people down in the cast, and he daily was retracking every role, playing 5 different roles himself. He didn't sleep, I think, didn't eat probably for 2 months to make sure our show still went on every night. And he did it all with a smile, and he did it all with such poise and such a sense of calm. It's when you see people and you're you just were meant to do this because you're so good at it. You're so at ease. There are some people that I've witnessed be swings who are frazzled. I probably would be. I've never swung. I'm sure I'd be a stress case. He is cool as a cucumber, always in control, and just so the person that you want to be in charge when stuff is, going wrong. So he's phenomenal. That's my number one. Giving props to stage managers. I think the whole Doubtfire stage management team deserves an award. Any stage management team during COVID, any understudy team, swing team, everyone is doing the thing. It was tough, and people are still going through it, but I give all the props. Have you heard of, or do you know, Beverly Jenkins, stage manager? No. She is outstanding, so much so that she earned a Tony honor this year. She the recipient of a Tony honor, I think, for excellence in the theater. She is an outstanding PSM, and I've been lucky enough to have had her on 2 Broadway shows, 2 different ones. And she, I would say, is just strikes the perfect balance of someone that commands respect and there's no doubt that she is the boss. She is in control. You don't want to wrong Beverly Jenkins. But she's so warm and so approachable and cares about being human, which I think at least my experience in the past has been more of one or the other, right? It's like someone who's very strict, no nonsense, no bullshit, and it is what it is, no rule breaking. Or the opposite, like very lenient, so kind, but maybe needs to crack the whip a little bit more.
Yeah.
And she so brilliantly, I think, combines the two. And it's just such a joy to work with her any and every time I've had the opportunity. And can I do one more?
Yeah.
Yes.
Patrick Vacchiarello, who is a music director. He music directed Cabaret. He is the music supervisor for so many things, conductor, Hugh Jackman's music director always. He's music directing Music Man right now. But he is the only reason I ever was a part of that show because he was foolish enough to say that I could pass for playing the saxophone, which I really couldn't. But he believed in me and said, okay, you're faking it till you make it. I can work with this. And he gave me that opportunity. And I don't think I would ever have a Broadway career if it weren't for him. So shout out to Patrick. He's amazing. And I'm so, so grateful for his confidence in me when I didn't even really have it in myself.
Hey, Patrick.
I guess I have a follow-up for Kaleigh about just like what was your like road to Broadway? Like how did you kind of get there?
So I after I think way back when we started talking, I was referencing the Palace Theater in Manchester, which I grew up, performing. That was kind of my training. I didn't really take formal voice lessons. I think I did a couple of years of tap and jazz, but not intense dance training. My training really happened in doing, which I think was valuable. Like I was just thrust into these shows with professionals and told, like, learn as you go. And that served me well for getting to college auditions. I went to school at Carnegie Mellon, which was incredible for preparing me for what New York would be like and auditions would be like, and having a solid foundation of acting first, which I think has served me well. And I don't think that's always the case in a lot of these programs, but I'm certainly grateful for that. And I think hopefully it's the reason that you can have a long career. And hopefully now that I'm getting to an older age, I could start transitioning into more acting heavy roles, maybe straight theater. We'll see. But after college, actually, this was very lucky. I know how fortunate I am to have had this happen. But the day I graduated college, or not day, the day I was moving to, I think I did a summer gig at Music Theater of Wichita. I did a summer theater show where I got my equity card. I love that theater. I adore everyone there. And after Wichita, my mom moved me to New York. I was moving into a sublet, and she dropped me off in her minivan to an audition because on the way there, I had looked up backstage.com. I didn't have an agent at the time, I don't think. And I looked up, what's auditioning today? So we unpacked my suitcase at my sublet, and she drove me to this building that was going to be the audition. And it was my first audition living in New York, and it was an open call for Jersey Boys. They were starting a brand new national tour. And I had never seen the show, didn't really know about it. I just thought, okay, I'm in New York. I guess that I start auditioning now. So looking back, I'm laughing at myself because I had no idea what I was doing. I was asking other girls in line, like, what line's this? Who needs what? I had no idea. I was just out of college and got in there, sang my 16 bars, left, didn't think anything of it, was just happy, like, great, like, I did an audition. And then I got called, I think, weeks later to come back in for a callback, and I ended up getting that job. which was shocking because it was kind of the first thing I had, really tried for. And I went on the road with Jersey Boys for 2.5 years. I loved every second of it. Saw the country. Met who would become my husband, the saxophone player on the tour. I then married. And conveniently, when the Cabaret auditions happened, I was content to stay on tour. I loved it. But Cabaret was advertised. It's coming to Broadway. I said, like Scott, this is my favorite show. I have to be in this.
Mm-hmm.
To my agents, can I get an appointment? They said, great. You need to also be an advanced musician. So what instrument do you play, and are you advanced? And I said, yes, I am advanced, and I play the saxophone. I had played the saxophone as a middle schooler. So I had not touched a saxophone since I was 12. I said, yes, I'm advanced. Lies. But I needed this audition. So conveniently, I was dating the saxophone player in the show in Jersey Boys. And I text him, you need to teach me how to play the saxophone, and I need your saxophone to go audition in New York City. So this man, looking back, he really loved me because we would do a show somewhere in the country of Jersey Boys. He would then give me his saxophone. I would fly to New York to do these auditions. And there were several. I probably flew back 3 different times for all the callbacks. And he taught me enough to get by, to have Patrick say, okay, that's good enough. And yeah, after several callbacks, I got the job. And it was so exciting.
Were you, since this was kind of like a revival of a production that had already been done, like were you, when you guys went in rehearsals and stuff, was Rob Marshall there? Was Sam Mendes there?
So I wasn't sure what would be the case because sometimes that does happen. Revivals, it's an associate, you never meet the people.
Mm-hmm.
But Sam Mendes was there every single day. Rob Marshall was there nearly every single day. So it was just wild. And again, for that to be my first experience, I'm looking at people like, you are legends. But in a way, I'm glad that was my first, to get that out of like, okay, if I can do this and not be a nervous wreck in front of Sam Mendes as he's giving me notes on my scene, I can do this. If I can play saxophone, if I can play accordion, I'm kind of glad it was like the hardest thing happened first. But yeah, it was just an amazing, amazing experience.
Totally stupid question. When you did Jersey Boys, were you in the Chicago company? Because there was a Chicago company that then went touring.
I was not. So at a time, there were so many different Jersey Boys going. I did the second national tour I originated that toured the country. We never stopped or sat down in Chicago. I'm envious of the people that did. I love Chicago, but I did actually perform in Millennium Park. Millennium Park, right, is the huge venue outside. I, as the understudy in Cabaret, they asked me to do the press appearances to advertise the tour that was upcoming. So that was one of my coolest performance experiences ever, was me singing on stage with a full orchestra. And how many thousands of people can fit in the park?
Lots.
Yeah, lots.
Yeah, it was probably the most people I'd ever performed for. That was so cool. But other than that, I've not been to Chicago. So I'd love to go through again on a tour or a sit down or an out of town situation.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to get lunch then too.
Yes, of course.
So Kaleigh, we usually end the show with just the question of, what is some advice that you would give yourself when you were starting out that you didn't necessarily know, or advice that you would give to somebody who's starting out now? Definitely
to myself, and I think it's helpful probably for everyone, but specifically because I know how I operate, I would say that I need to release the need to be perfect, because that does not exist in our business. It doesn't exist anywhere. And I think I had so many sleepless nights starting out, about trying to, achieve perfection. And I feel like I can relax and realize it's not that deep. At the end of the day, you're playing make-believe, right? This is dress up, and we're playing pretend. And not to say it's not important work, but I think an element of me took it so seriously that I could afford to relax a little bit. So I'd say definitely that. I would say to anyone wanting to pursue this, keep going. Don't let anyone tell you no. I mean, our whole job is hearing no, but if you know this is what you love and you're determined, you'll get there. Yeah, and from an understudy standpoint, I guess being a good listener, being easy to work with, I guess like not even understudy, just as a performer. You want to be easy to work with. I feel like I've gotten jobs not because I'm the most talented person in the room, but because I'm easy to work with. Mm-hmm. And I think when you can be a pleasant person that people want to be around, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
I agree.
Talent is a lot of it, but it's not everything. So I think always, conduct yourself with professionalism and be a pleasant person that people want to be around. And I think you will find success that way.
I think that's
awesome
great advice for everybody in everything in the world.
Absolutely. Yes. Kaleigh, thank you so much. This was so great.
Yes,
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. I hope I didn't talk your ears off.
No,
I can
you
talk
did,
a lot.
and it was perfect.
Yeah, I just want to say you
did.
talked our ears
That was the
off
goal.
the perfect amount.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
good. Great.
They're still attached. So.
Great.
Yeah, no, it was really great. And you are very clearly a pleasant person to be around. I'm really grateful you joined us.
Those are both of you. Thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Oh, that's it.
That's
did it.
We did it.
Success.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation today with Kaleigh Cronin and that it gives deeper insight into the art of understudying.
To send us a question or give us a suggestion of somebody we should interview, email us at understudypodcast@gmail.com.
Or hit us up at understudypod on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
We want to thank all of our Patreon subscribers, especially Marcella Huff and Stanley Sava and Andrew Sava.
If you want to support the show, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/understudypod.
Our theme song and all other music are by Laura McKenzie.
Our episodes are edited by Scott and produced by Scott and a little bit of me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, please hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice and tell your friends.
If you hated it, tell your enemies.
And their parents.
And their stupid parents. Bye.
Bye.